In the golden glow of old Hollywood, marriage wasn't just a personal milestone, it was a career move. Studios carefully crafted romances, controlled headlines, and manufactured fairy tales to protect the illusion of perfection. For many stars, love wasn't something they could live, it was something they had to perform. But beneath the glossy magazine covers and publicity stunts were men and women who made a radical choice for their time. They never married. Some were fiercely independent, others quietly heartbroken, and a few lived lives that Hollywood simply wasn't ready to accept. This is the untold story of 24 Golden Age actors who never said, "I do," and the surprising, sometimes heartbreaking reasons why. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Cary Grant, the man who couldn't escape himself. On screen, Cary Grant was the ultimate romantic hero, suave, witty, and effortlessly confident at off-screen. His life was far more complicated. Born Archibald Leach, Grant carried deep scars from a fractured childhood and an absent mother. He reinvented himself completely in America, creating the elegant persona that made him a legend. But perfection came at a price. Grant's relationships, from actresses like Virginia Cherrill to heiress Barbara Hutton, always ended in turmoil. Some biographers suggest his perfectionism and self-doubt made true intimacy impossible. Others whisper about his long and complex friendship with actor Randolph Scott, a bond that blurred the lines between companionship and something deeper. In the end, Cary Grant was loved by millions, but truly known by very few. 2. Katharine Hepburn, the independent spirit. If any woman defined independence in Hollywood, it was Katharine Hepburn. Outspoken, athletic, and brilliant, she rejected nearly every feminine stereotype of her time. Her decades-long companionship with Spencer Tracy remains one of Hollywood's great love stories. But it was a relationship lived in shadows, as Tracy remained married to another woman for religious reasons. When asked why she never married again, Hepburn simply said, "I was too busy being myself." And perhaps that was her truest love story, the freedom to live on her own terms. 3. Greta Garbo, I Want to Be Alone. The mysterious Swedish icon who once uttered, "I want to be alone," wasn't being dramatic, she meant it. Garbo's life was shrouded in secrecy. After retiring from Hollywood at just 35, she lived quietly in New York City, avoiding cameras for the rest of her life. Though she had close friendships and possibly romances with both men and women, Garbo never married. For her, solitude wasn't loneliness, it was liberation. 4. James Dean, the tragic rebel. James Dean's career was brief but legendary. He embodied youth, rebellion, and vulnerability, all before dying in a car crash at just 24. Dean's restless nature and complex relationships suggest that marriage was never part of his path. Friends described him as both deeply affectionate and emotionally unpredictable, a man searching for connection in a world that never really understood him. 5. Marlon Brando, the unconventional lover. Marlon Brando technically married 3 times, but none lasted, and in spirit, he was never bound to anyone. His hunger for freedom, adventure, and experimentation defined both his art and his relationships. Brando loved deeply but destructively men and women alike, and often sabotaged his own happiness. When asked late in life why he never settled down, Brando said, "Marriage is too confining for the kind of life I've chosen." 6. James Stewart, the eternal bachelor, until love found him late. For most of his prime years, James Stewart was one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors. Studios used his clean-cut image to sell charm and decency, but Stewart was shy and cautious when it came to romance. He dated Ginger Rogers and Olivia de Havilland, yet none of those relationships stuck. It wasn't until he was 41 that he finally married Gloria Hattrick McLean, long after the height of his fame. Even then, he admitted he'd always been a loner at heart. 7. Montgomery Clift, the wounded soul. Montgomery Clift had the face of an angel and the heart of a man at war with himself. Behind his smoldering beauty was profound sadness and a struggle with his sexuality in a time when being gay could destroy a career. After a devastating car accident in 1956, Clift's life unraveled into addiction and depression. He never married, and some say he couldn't, not in an era that forced men like him to live in fear of who they really were. 8. Vivien Leigh, the tragic beauty. Vivien Leigh was unforgettable as Scarlett O'Hara, fiery, charming, unstoppable. But off-screen, she battled bipolar disorder and deep emotional instability. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier was passionate, but turbulent, collapsing under the weight of her illness and fame. Afterward, she chose solitude over starting again, saying, "I'll never find another Larry." Though she technically married once more, she remained emotionally tethered to Olivier until her death. 9. Rock Hudson, the hidden truth. Rock Hudson was the image of masculine perfection, tall, handsome, and romantic. But behind that carefully crafted image was a painful truth. Rock Hudson was a gay man forced to live a lie. His marriage to Phyllis Gates was a studio arrangement meant to silence rumors. For decades, he hid his real self to protect his career. When he died of AIDS in 1985, his secret was finally revealed, and it changed Hollywood forever. Rock Hudson's story isn't just about bachelorhood, it's about the cost of being silenced. 10. Shirley Temple, the child star who grew up alone. America's sweetheart seemed destined for a perfect fairy tale life. But Shirley Temple's early fame left her emotionally guarded. Her first marriage ended quickly, and though she later remarried, she often spoke of how difficult it was to connect after spending her childhood as a product rather than a person. Hers is a story of early loss, of innocence, privacy, and trust. 11. Spencer Tracy, Love in the Shadows. Spencer Tracy was devoutly Catholic, married, and the father of 2 children. Yet his heart belonged to Katharine Hepburn for over 25 years. Bound by religion and guilt, he could never divorce his wife, and Hepburn accepted that reality. They lived parallel lives, united by love but separated by faith. For Tracy, marriage was a matter of duty, but love a quiet rebellion. 12. Randolph Scott, the quiet partner. Randolph Scott spent much of his life living with Cary Grant. The 2 actors shared homes, vacations, and an intimate friendship that became Hollywood legend. While both publicly denied romantic involvement, their bond defied conventional friendship. Scott eventually married, but many historians believe it was for appearances. Whether they were lovers or simply soulmates, their story remains one of Hollywood's most whispered enigmas. 13. Hattie McDaniel, the woman Hollywood ignored. Hattie McDaniel made history as the first black woman to win an Oscar for Gone with the Wind. But Hollywood's racism left her typecast and isolated. She married multiple times, yet none lasted, and she spent her later years largely alone, saying she was tired of being a maid on and off screen. Her solitude wasn't by choice, it was the byproduct of a system that refused to see her worth. 14. Howard Hughes, the billionaire recluse. Howard Hughes was a genius, a pilot, a filmmaker, and a man consumed by obsession. Though he dated countless Hollywood beauties, from Ava Gardner to Katharine Hepburn, his paranoia and mental illness drove them all away. By his later years, Hughes lived alone in dark hotel rooms, terrified of germs and the world itself. His bachelorhood became a symbol of what happens when power and isolation replace love. 15. Marilyn Monroe, married yet alone. Marilyn married 3 times, but somehow remained profoundly alone. Her marriages to Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, and James Dougherty all ended in heartbreak. Behind the glamorous smile was a woman who longed for stability but never found peace within herself. In a note discovered after her death, she wrote, "I'm trying to find myself, but I don't know who I am." For Marilyn, love was always just out of reach, not because no one wanted her, but because Hollywood never let her just be herself. 16. Jean Harlow, the star who died too young. Jean Harlow's dazzling beauty and magnetic presence made her one of the first true bombshells. Though she married briefly, her great love, producer Paul Byrne, died tragically under mysterious circumstances. Afterward, she never married again. Harlow died at only 26, leaving behind a legacy of unfulfilled promise and unanswered questions. 17. Joan Crawford, the perfectionist. Joan Crawford was the embodiment of control, every movement, every photograph calculated. Behind that steel facade was a woman who feared vulnerability more than anything. Though she married 4 times, her perfectionism and drive often made emotional intimacy impossible. In many ways, Joan Crawford was married to her career, and Hollywood was her most demanding husband. 18. Greta Garbo to Montgomery Clift, a shared legacy. Each of these stars, in their own way, reflected the paradox of fame. Loved by millions, yet trapped in isolation. They lived lives scripted by others, studios, publicists, and societal norms, and when they tried to write their own stories, they often faced scandal or heartbreak. Their refusal or inability to marry wasn't always rebellion. Sometimes it was survival. As the cameras rolled and the flashbulbs popped, the world believed it was witnessing perfection. But behind the curtain, the truth was more human and more haunting. These stars were dreamers, rebels, survivors. Some were broken by Hollywood, others learned to bend without breaking. They loved deeply, often in secret. They sacrificed their own happiness to protect the illusions that built an empire. And in their solitude, they left behind something greater than romance, a legacy of authenticity in a world built on make-believe. The next time you watch an old Hollywood film and fall in love with the stars on screen, remember this. The real story wasn't in their scripts. It was in the silence between takes, the lives they couldn't live, and the truths they couldn't tell.